So when I heard the announcement that Gjallarhorn was returning in Destiny 2, I was watching the Witch Queen showcase with my clanmates, and we all sort of lost our minds.
Dungeon holds one more secret.
It's a DLC
The crown jewel of its weaponry is a Destiny 1
What?
classic.
Gjallarhorn!
Yo, it's coming back! Oh my god! So yes, Gjallarhorn is officially back in Destiny 2, and I could not be more excited to make my first ever Destiny 2 weapon review video on the return of the most iconic weapon in this entire franchise. But I don't think any amount of hype could have prepared me for just how good this thing was actually going to be. Bungie did not disappoint with its return. It gained an entirely new exotic trait, has 2 intrinsic hidden perks, being grenades and horseshoes that is normally only found on Truth, and also built-in tracking, on top of being a DPS and ad clear monster once you have the catalyst. The 30th anniversary is well worth the money for the new activities, loot, and cosmetics, but I honestly would not bat an eye if you told me that you were going to pay the $25 just to get your hands on this behemoth of a weapon. So now that my initial thoughts are out of the way, let's take a deep dive into the weapon by starting off with the actual perks listed on it. It wouldn't be Gjallarhorn if it didn't come with the same amazing perks that made the gun what it was in Destiny 1, right? So all of those are returning. Its exotic intrinsic trait, of course, is Wolfpack rounds. For those that didn't play Destiny 1 or just don't know, Wolfpack rounds are basically like Hunter skip grenades that come out of every rocket you shoot after it explodes. Think the cluster bomb perk on rockets, but much stronger. At first, it can be kind of hard to tell how many Wolfpack rounds there are per rocket, but if we just shoot a rocket at the sky and zoom in on it with a sniper, we can see that there is indeed 8 total Wolfpack rounds every time. The exotic catalyst makes these Wolfpack rounds even stronger, but we'll go into that later in this video. Now let's move on to Gjallarhorn's secondary trait, which is Pack Hunter. Now this perk is brand new to the Gjallarhorn in Destiny 2 and was not on either of the versions in Destiny 1, and basically makes Gjallarhorn a pseudo support weapon. The trait states that you gain increased handling and reload speed on the gun whenever you are near allies, so it's like a mix of threat detector and firing line. You get the benefits of increased handling and reload speed like threat detector, but instead of having to be near enemies, you just need to be within 15 meters of allies, similar to firing line, which is huge since that's what a big bulky rocket launcher lacks. And then also included on the same intrinsic perk, firing this weapon also grants Wolfpack rounds to all nearby allies wielding non-exotic rocket launchers, which is huge. So in simple terms, anyone on your fire team wielding a legendary rocket launcher will get Wolfpack rounds on their rocket launcher for 15 seconds after you fire yours. So as you can see, my clanmate fires his Gjallarhorn, and you can see I'm wielding a Royal Entry and gain the Pack Hunter buff for 15 seconds after he fires it, and during that 15 seconds, my Royal Entry legendary rocket launcher gets Wolfpack rounds. As the trait states, this will work on any non-exotic rocket launcher, so yes, you can even increase the DPS of blueberries in your fire team that are using the base game rocket launchers. Now that we've gone over the 2 main perks of Gjallarhorn, let me also quickly mention that Gjallarhorn also has some hidden perks on it, just like in Destiny 1. I believe the D1 version of Gjallarhorn did have the actual tracking perk on it, but this Destiny 2 version does not mention tracking anywhere while just having it built in without saying it, so I thought I should mention it. The tracking just feels like a normal tracking perk, to be honest. It's not anything insane like Truth. I saw some people comparing it to Truth, while I don't think it's that crazy. However, with Wolfpack rounds, you really don't need to be that accurate anyway. If you're shooting this thing from a target that is super far away, the Wolfpack rounds are going to split off and hit the target anyway, so long as it gets close enough. And speaking of Truth, that leads us to the second hidden perk on Gjallarhorn in D2, and this one is a returning hidden perk, and that is Grenades and Horseshoes. Normally, this perk is only found on Truth. The perk states that projectiles, aka rockets, will detonate when they are within close proximity to their target. While farming the catalyst in the Thrallway, I actually killed myself multiple times with it and kept wondering why that was happening, and guessed that the blast radius on this thing must have been insane. It wasn't until later I found out that the rockets were just exploding in my face since the Thrall were so close. Now, like I said, this was also a hidden perk on the Destiny 1 Gjallarhorn, so it's not a huge surprise to see it here again. Now, I personally would have rather them left this hidden perk out just because a decent chunk of rocket's damage comes from its impact, but I think that they did it just to balance Gjallarhorn out a bit. Because of Grenades and Horseshoes, the rocket will more often than not prematurely explode on a target, which is never something anyone wants. But the perk is nice for PvP when the explosion near a target will more often than not kill them, but when you're using it for boss DPS, it does kind of suck when your rocket explodes before reaching the boss and you lose impact damage because of it. Now, this isn't always the case, and it seems more like RNG for the most part, but the built-in hidden perk of Grenades and Horseshoes is the reason this thing can cannot confidently be the #1 DPS weapon in the game. However, Gjallarhorn is required for the highest DPS weapon in the game, and we'll get to that in just a moment as well. Now let's quickly go over the exotic catalyst. This isn't going to be a guide on how to get the Gjallarhorn or its catalyst, but both are extremely easy. Once you buy the 30th anniversary DLC, you just talk to Shahan, start the quest, finish the dungeon, run some errands, and you've got the gun within an hour or two. Now the catalyst is even easier. Once you own Gjallarhorn, run the new dungeon again, open 3 secret chests that are scattered throughout the dungeon, and you'll unlock the catalyst on the 3rd and final chest. So what does the catalyst do exactly? Well, Gjallarhorn's catalyst adds the 3rd thing to make this a truly jack-of-all-trades exotic heavy weapon. Its primary use, of course, is going to be for the burst DPS, and the catalyst just makes it do that job even better. You gain an extra rocket in the chamber for every reload, so you can shoot off 2 rockets each time before reloading. And then the catalyst also gives your Gjallarhorn the ability to create more Wolfpack rounds every time a Wolfpack round gets a kill. It was kinda hard to show off exactly what this meant, but essentially it turns Gjallarhorn into an insane ad-clear weapon, at least for a rocket launcher. Much better than I would have expected it to be. The Wolfpack rounds essentially act like Siva nanites on Outbreak Perfected, seeking out the nearest enemy and exploding, and once that enemy is dead, it just spawns more Wolfpack rounds to seek out more enemies. There is, of course, a limit to this, or it would just be outright broken, but as you can see here, farming the old loot cave entrance at the start of the dungeon, trying to show it off, and it was just so satisfying seeing one rocket and its Wolfpack rounds take care of an entire group of enemies, even though they were pretty spread out. And as you can see, I'd get yellow numbers sometimes on the Wolfpack rounds, and I believe that is the game's way of showing you the catalyst in action. The yellow numbers represent an extra Wolfpack round created by the catalyst, similar to how Deathbringer's catalyst will give you yellow numbers as well when the projectiles are at their max falling distance for the extra damage. So yeah, like I said a moment ago, the catalyst makes Gjallarhorn a jack-of-all-trades exotic heavy weapon. You can do insane burst DPS with 2 rockets in the chamber, it can ad clear extremely well with the Wolfpack round spawning even more, and finally the Pack Hunter exotic trait makes it an extremely good support weapon on top of that by giving your fire team members Wolfpack rounds on their rockets. And of course, I'm sure you're all wondering what the best DPS option is now that Gjallarhorn is in the game, and I'm not gonna lie, Fusion still reigns supreme as long as Particle Deconstruction is in the game for the remainder of the season. However, the only Fusion that actually out DPS's Gjallarhorn, even with Particle Deconstruction, is Sleeper Simulant with its recent buff. Now, I'd also like to mention though that Sleeper heavily relies on crit damage, while Gjallarhorn is extremely forgiving since it has tracking, grenades and horseshoes, and Wolfpack rounds. Like, if you miss your target with Gjallarhorn, I don't know what to tell you. You know the old saying of they can't hit the broadside of a barn? Well, Gjallarhorn would quite literally bring the entire barn down if you fired it in the opposite direction. So even though Sleeper can out DPS Gjallarhorn with Particle Deconstruction this season, once that meta-defining mod goes away next season, these 2 exotic heavy weapons will actually be neck and neck in damage. And when Gjallarhorn's ease of use is so much higher with all the things I just mentioned, as long as the meta stays where it is right now going into Witch Queen, we'll 100% be looking at a rocket launcher meta next season. Now, none of that should deter any of you from using Gjallarhorn this season. Hell, I've known Sleeper could out DPS Gally since the day after it came out, but this rocket launcher has been glued to my heavy slot the entire time. I've also seen evidence uploaded by Nuo, who won Movie of the Week, where he and his fire team were able to one-phase every raid boss in the game with 6 Gjallarhorns. Link to that video will be in the description if you'd like to see the full thing. The main thing that stuck out to me was how they one-phase Sanctified Mind, the final boss of Garden of Salvation. This is one of the quickest DPS phases in Destiny history, and while one-phasing any raid boss has never been impossible, it's still pretty damn impressive in my eyes, and the fact that they did it without even extending the DPS phase with tethers just blew my mind. Most of the ways raid bosses have been one-phased in recent years have been by executing specific builds like sticking Warmind cells to bosses, or finding any niche buff or debuff that will stack with other buffs and debuffs, since Bungie took a majority of that out of the game. The past 2 seasons in particular have had OP mods on the artifact that make a specific weapon type meta for the rest of the season, those being Breach and Clear for grenade launchers last season and Particle Deconstructions for fusions this season. And the fact that Gjallarhorn doesn't have any fancy mods for buffs or debuffs going for it this season, and it's still able to trail right behind the top dogs that are taking advantage of those mods this season, should really speak to the strength of this weapon. So yeah, Gjallarhorn might not be the best overall DPS option next to Sleeper with Particle Deconstruction, but it's still a pretty damn good one. So the last thing I wanted to talk about, I hope, is on all of your minds now, which is what is the best legendary rocket launcher to pair with Wolfpack rounds? And I'm glad you asked, because this is what's going to be the highest DPS weapon in the game, assuming the meta doesn't change going into Witch Queen. I don't know how many of you know this, but every rocket launcher in the game in Destiny 2 actually does the same amount of damage. Sure, there are certain perks that can make it do slightly more damage, like cluster bombs, lasting impression, or even impact case spacing, but even those perks are only adding a little bit of extra damage on top of every rocket fired. The main source of a rocket launcher's DPS actually comes from the impact damage, which Gjallarhorn can't get because of the intrinsic grenades and horseshoes perk. So almost any other legendary rocket launcher that you pair with Gjallarhorn is going to out DPS Gjallarhorn itself, and the perks you're going to be wanting to look at on legendary rocket launchers from now on is anything that can let you fire as many rocket shots without reloading. Perks like Overflow, Clown Cartridge, or even Demolitionist are all great options. Speaking of which, Xur was actually selling a royal entry with Clown Cartridge earlier in December, which normally only drops from the Strike playlist. This thing is a precision frame rocket launcher, meaning it intrinsically has tracking built in just like Gjallarhorn, making it a pretty damn good weapon to pick up. I wouldn't call this specific one from Xur a god roll, but just the fact that it has built-in tracking and Clown Cartridge makes it a pretty good option if you don't have a better one. And here I got my clanmate Hezi to help me out by showing off the 3 perks I mentioned. Overflow lets you have 2 in the mag on a rocket when you walk over a special or heavy brick. Personally, I think Overflow is worse than Clown Cartridge though. There used to be a glitch in the past where you could get 3 in the mag by Hunter Dodge reloading and proccing Overflow at this same exact time. This has since been fixed, but I think it's the only way I would have recommended Overflow over Clown Cartridge or Demolitionist, because both of those you can almost guarantee yourself to get an extra rocket off before reloading, while Overflow you need an ammo brick on the ground and it only gives you 1 extra rocket at that too. So personally, I think they should buff Overflow on rockets to increase it to 3 in the mag. I don't know how game breaking that would be for actual smart people that could set up a bunch of ammo bricks on the ground for a boss DPS phase and just never have to reload and fire off an insane amount of rockets, but it'd at least be a competitive option with the other perks. Demolitionist is a nice perk, not for the fact that it gives you grenade energy for kills, but also because it reloads the weapon upon throwing a grenade. I'd actually say this perk is somewhere between Clown Cartridge and Overflow, as the only boss I can find this perk being really good on is Atheon, since you essentially throw an unlimited amount of grenades during that boss DPS phase. And the final and best perk on legendary rocket launchers to pair with Gjallarhorn is definitely Clown Cartridge at the moment, just for the fact that it guarantees 2 rockets in the mag every time you reload, making it the highest DPS weapon in the game currently when paired with Gjallarhorn's ability to give it Wolfpack rounds. But that about sums up this video. Those were my thoughts and review of Gjallarhorn's return to Destiny 2. If it wasn't clear, I really like this gun, and while it might not be the #1 DPS option in the game, it's still like #3 spot in terms of overall DPS, and on top of that, it can be a decent ad clear and support weapon. So yeah, like I said, if you wanted to buy the $25 30th anniversary pack for Gjallarhorn alone, I wouldn't blame you, and no one else should blame you. This thing is awesome. Also, I wanted to quickly shout out several content creators that inspired me to finally get around to making this video, and several other weapon reviews in the future. Error, Aztecross, Dado, Drewski, Kamicakes, Cool Guy, and Fallout Plays are all channels I recommend checking out. Those guys and their communities is really what got me into the nerdier side of Destiny and DPS numbers and build crafting. So if for whatever reason you don't know who those guys are, definitely go check them out. I linked all of their channels down below. Thanks again for taking the time to watch my first ever Destiny 2 weapon review video. I feel pretty pumped that my first one ever was on Gjallarhorn's return, and I hope I was able to do it justice. But thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. But until then, this has been Max. Peace.